Okay. Okay, I'm gonna place myself here. Okay, now my face is the only face that everyone can see in the recording. Okay, all right, so here we go. So the myth of participation in the world language classroom. I decided on this title because there's so many things said about participation in the world language classroom that it becomes a myth. And sometimes we not necessarily agree with our colleagues on how we deal with participation. If I'm sure that if I take a world language department and if I compare their grade books and I see how they handle participation in their classes, is going to be quite different. Even if everyone agreed to do the same thing, because you know what happens at schools, you know, say, okay, yeah, we can do that. And then everyone just does whatever they want. So it's a myth just because it's a little bit obscure sometimes, it's not that clear. And as I always say, you guys, I like to be very honest with you in the sense that I'm not here to give you magical answers. I'm here to share my experience and I'm here to share points of view that may help you clarify some aspects of the topic that we are currently talking about. So the myth of participation in the world language classroom. Okay, so let's go to the Kahoot and let's figure this out. Senor Ojeda, you can do this, come on. All right, so I'm gonna get to the Kahoot and I'm going to do play and you're going to see a code that you can access from another window on your computer. Okay, play. Teach. Okay. All right, so we're gonna do the classic. It's loading right now. Come on, si se puede. Okay, classic Kahoot. For those who are not familiar with Kahoot, please go to kahoot.it on another window on your browser and access the game or the questions through that code, 5853203. I hope you like the music that I chose. It was disco music. Okay. Okay, 19, 20. I think we have like 40 people connected right now. So I'm gonna wait up until 30. Then you can access it if you haven't yet. Ok, señor Pérez, L, Esther, Rosa, Janine, Vivi, Profe Casillas. Okay, Patty. Okay, I'm gonna wait 2 more seconds here and we're gonna start. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to give you the questions, all of them at the same time. So just answer the first question and then we go back to the presentation. We talk a little bit and then I'm gonna ask another question and hopefully you won't be kicked out of the Kahoot, okay? Muy bien, so here we go. Let's start. Why do students struggle to participate in class? What do you think? Just give me an option. Okay, muy bien. So we need to remember this answer here. So why don't they participate? So most of you say that it's a matter of self-esteem. I just realized that the questions got jumbled, not in the order that I wanted. So I'm gonna ask you all the questions right now, and I'm gonna take notes of what did you answer. Okay, so most of you said self-esteem or that the student is shy. All right, next question. How can the teacher promote participation? Through prizes? Oh, extra credit with X, I'm sorry. Grades, giving easy content. Extra should be with X, my apologies. Okay. So how can the teacher? So we say that 38% through easy content. Okay, that will motivate participation in the classroom. And some of you say that through prizes. Okay, next one. It's only 4 or 5 out of 5. What means to participate? That was actually the first question. Cooperate, share, take part, play a part, all of them. Okay, strong 88%, all of them. Okay, we go with question number 4. Participation rubrics are essential. Yes, no, maybe, not sure. Okay, so most of you say that participation rubrics are not essential, 44%. Okay, and the last one. What should count as participation? Okay, let's see. So we have, wow. Okay, 29% said listening, attitude, and readiness, and 13% kindness. Okay. All right, muy bien. Thank you so much for participating on this, and let's get into what I have prepared for you. So gracias por participar. Thanks for participating. I'm gonna close this, gonna close this, gonna close this. And I'm gonna go back to the presentation. Okay, muy bien. So what means to participate? What means to participate? And we had different options. Participate means to take part of, to play a part in something, to join. Just by joining, you're participating. To share something, and to cooperate. So when we think about participation in the world language classroom, what are we thinking about? Do we consider all of these things? Because the moment the student is in the classroom, somehow they're taking part of that situation, of that class. Obviously, some students take part in different ways. Some are more active than others. but still they're taking part of that class. Do we consider that when we think about their participation? Just the fact that they are joining the class. Well, they have to because it's part of schooling and all of these things, but they could just make the decision not to show up, right? And we have those situations. We have situations in which students do not show up to class. I have those situations. I'm sure you have those situations, and more when we are virtually right now, struggling with students showing up virtually through Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. When the student shares, what are they sharing in the class? How are they sharing? And when they cooperate, meaning that they help maintaining an environment that is conducive to our instruction. Well, it's just so quiet. You know, his participation is really not good. He's so quiet all the time. Maybe that student decided to be quiet just because many other kids are rambunctious around them, and that's their way to cooperate with you. We take that into account. What needs to participate? You guys said all of those, and I agree. All of those things should count, but we must think about those things when we think about participation. And when I say when we think about participation, I'm also thinking about when we grade participation. What needs to participate to us? To say the student saying something productive? Oh, well, you know, he always says something, but he's just out of touch. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's not paying attention. Therefore, his answers are always the wrong answers. So participation, not good, okay? So what is productive in the world language classroom? If we think that the student is not saying something productive, is not doing something productive, so what means to be productive in the world language classroom? So these are questions that we need to ask ourselves when we talk about participation. What should count as participation? And your answer here said that everything, readiness, the attitude of the student, and you also said that listening, probably listening to the teachers, listening to classmates. But you didn't give much value to kindness, in the sense that, you know, the student tries to connect with the teacher, the student tries to connect with their peers. Let's think about again that shy student, but who's pretty much always doing whatever we want them to do, with the exception of saying something, participating. This student is still kind to you, still kind to the other students in the classroom. Isn't that part of taking part? And isn't taking part in something participation as well? Well, honestly, I was very surprised when you guys gave very low scores to kindness, but I think that that's something that we need to really try to encourage in our classes, because if no one is kind with the people around them, it's going to be really hard to study about a different culture, because this deals with empathy as well. So kindness should be an indicator that the student is trying to be part of. Now, if we are teaching online, if we are doing the Zoom thing or the Google Meet thing or the Teams thing, I have realized that that participating in the chat should be also looked as good participation from the students. Okay, they are probably not saying something verbally, but they are trying to participate via the chat. So now I encourage them, hey guys, you know, if I'm busy saying something, explaining something, someone else is saying something, listen, but if you have something to say, just put it in the chat. And I have found that many kids feel comfortable with that. Of course, we gotta be careful because we do want them to produce orally. So I get back to them and I say, thank you so much for participating in class through the chat. I saw your 3-4 participations. They were really good. I want you to try to say at least one thing next time. Say one thing next time, and the other 3 things, just put them on the chat, okay? Some will do it, but some will much rather keep doing it in the chat. But then what happens when we come back to the classroom? We don't have the chat anymore. Those kids who are using the chat right now are the quiet kids in the classroom. So in some way, doing the class through Zoom or through this media is helping us big time to allow those students who are really quiet in class to participate, to say something through the chat. And I wish we had a way when we go back presential for these students to keep adding to the class through a different system that is not necessarily raising their hand and saying something. Okay, now we need to consider 2 things. We need to consider, is participation in the world language classroom only inside of the classroom, in the building, in the physical setting, or can we look at participation before class and participation after the class? Okay, for example, what if the student has a question? We always see questions as, well, part of our job, okay? But not all the students ask questions, but sometimes we get emails from students asking a question. Okay, what is the difference between asking the question via email and asking the question in the classroom? Why sometimes we tend to see the question in the classroom as they're engaged, they're participating, but looking at the question from home, oh, they didn't get it. They just didn't pay attention in class. Now they're asking me this. Why do we see those 2 things differently? To me, those questions add to the participation in the world language classroom, because the world language classroom is not a physical space, it's everything, everywhere. Now, participation before class. Do they have their assignments on time? Even if it's wrong, okay? That means that they work at home doing their assignment to make sure that they comply with the deadline that you had. So that should be seen as the student participating in your class so things run smoothly. And they do this before class, when we talk about homework, for example, or little projects. What about the hobbies that the students have? Are those hobbies somehow related to the culture that you are teaching? Maybe you presented something in the class that really caught their attention and made an interest in your students, and then it became a hobby, for example, to follow a YouTuber in the target language. But they don't do this during class. They do it before class. And they tell you, hey, señor, yesterday I was watching this YouTuber from Colombia that I really like, and she was talking about how people in the streets, they just are not using the masks during COVID, okay? But then this student is quiet in class. So we're trying to gauge here what is participating in the world language classroom. We need to look at those things that are before, during, and after. Now, the participation after the class, okay? More questions, right? Do they ask questions to other students in the class related to what we have done? Are they sharing something with their friends or family? Because sometimes we find out that the students came home and they share with their parents that we were talking about La Tomatina in Spain. And we have a conversation with parents and they tell us, oh yeah, he talked so much about La Tomatina. He wanted a tomatina for his birthday. But the kid is so quiet in class. Participation rate, no. But the kid is so motivated. And sometimes we're too harsh on ourselves. They're not participating, therefore we assume that we're not making an impact, that we're not interesting, or that they are lazy, or that they are bored. No, this thing works in amazing ways. And the student can get out of the class and then share everything that you share in class with friends or family. To me, that should be counting as participation. Group work outside of class. We have a project and they get excited. Señor, we're gonna meet in someone's house and we're going to do this project. Okay, we have a rubric for the project, group work, whatever, but do we take into account that motivation that pushes them to meet outside of school and to give a little bit of their time and to welcome people at their houses or maybe to meet somewhere? So those are things that are indicators of participation after class as well. I talk about what they share at home, and important, are they trying to connect through the second language with their community? I have students who sometimes come to me and, Senor, I went to my mom's job. She's a nurse, and she had some Hispanic clients, patients. My mom doesn't speak any Spanish, but because I'm in Spanish 4, I can communicate, and I was able to translate some things. Awesome, wonderful, that's great. And that is great. I get so excited with those things. But do we consider that as part of the student participation in the class? No, because he was outside of class, you know? So we need to look at this with different lenses. Talking about different lenses, I need to change my glasses because I can barely see. Okay, muy bien. This all connects, all right? Muy bien, so here we go. Why do they not participate? Most of you said that because their self-esteem or because they are shy. Okay, personality plays a role here. There are shy people anywhere in the world. Each one of us has a different personality. We cannot expect just one type of personality because it's the world language classroom. So the world language personality, that's what you have to bring to my class, okay? That's what I need, because otherwise you're not going to be succeeding in my classroom. Self-esteem, yeah, we do not know the history of some of these students. Have they struggled in previous language classes? Have they been probably put in situations that they felt very uncomfortable, that they didn't feel sure of themselves? And sometimes also bad experiences outside of school, bad experiences in general in life. So these are reasons why students do not participate. And again, we're so hard on ourselves, and we try to say to ourselves, they are not participating because I'm not engaging. They're not participating because they're not interested in the topic. They're not participating because this, because that. But there are so many other factors that really influence if the student participates or not in class. Now look at these things: shyness, personality, self-esteem, bad experiences. How can we help a student through this? How? With kindness. The same kindness that we gave 10% in that question. That kindness is what is going to help the student to feel better, to feel secure, to feel that they are important in the class. So let's think about that. It's not just a matter of like they are not engaged. World language classroom, so we need to ask ourselves, are they understanding what we're saying here? Do they have a pre-knowledge of what I'm trying to convey with my speech or with whatever I'm presenting to them? So it is important that we actually do our homework and we try to find out What is the history of this student? What do they know? What have they practiced? What have they acquired in the previous world language experience? Now, some students cannot understand, not because you're not effective, but because they have a condition. The student, for example, has an attention disorder, dyslexia. The student has a physical condition that makes really hard for them to listen, to listen to what you're saying because they can't. See, they just hear you speaking in the target language and they only hear because it's a physical condition. Okay, so it's not that they can't understand because they are not doing the job. They cannot understand because of many other reasons. Maybe the environment, you know, we try to make our classrooms safe. Administrators try to keep the building clean, but there are so many little things that can, you know, result in a reaction in someone. The smell of the painting, the colors of the classroom, the outside noise. They're always mowing the lawn when we are in Spanish class, and that happens in my classroom. See, so those things influence the you know, the capacity that students have to understand or not what we're trying to do in the class. Their learning styles. See, is this a student who learns better in what situation? We ask them to be at school at 7:45 to start class at 8, but this student learns better at night. See, so then we have the whole discussion about when to start classes, especially for high schoolers. Or maybe there's something that doesn't allow the student to connect with the teacher. So we're talking about participation, and I'm talking about uh, things that influence the fact that they cannot understand what's going on in the class, and therefore they don't feel like they can participate or they do not participate in class. So look at all those little things, not little things, but all those things that can influence. Now, how can we, the teachers, promote participation in the world language classroom? That was another question, and there were two answers: easy content and prices. Okay, so I have here, how can the teacher promote participation? Making sure that our students know our goal, but our goals should not be based on the curriculum, meaning we're not going to start the class saying, hey guys, welcome to Spanish class. Our goal for the first month is to make sure that we distinguish between ser and estar, because these two verbs are quite different in Spanish if you compare them to English, right? No, those are not the type of goals that will promote participation in the classroom. Hey guys, welcome to Spanish class. I'm here because I want you to learn Spanish, and because I know that I can teach you Spanish, because you are an amazing human being and you have the skill to learn, and I have the skill to teach. I'm a very good teacher, and I'm gonna make sure that you learn. Those are the goals. Look at the message. It's so different. You're showing self-esteem, your own self-esteem, and your trust in yourself to the students. In other words, without saying it, you're telling them you have to trust in yourself because we are the models. Contextualize the new topic with previous knowledge. Again, what have they done before your class? Make sure that you take from that and bring it to every class. Make sure that not every class is a different unit. Always bring things from previous sessions, conversations, stories, funny stories, jokes, whatever it takes. Bring it from the past, because that's what's going to help the student feel like, yes, I know what we're talking about here. And then we start talking about something a little bit different, but they feel that they belong there. Lead the lesson. Make sure, and this is not easy because it takes energy, right? But you always have to be the leader of the lesson, just to make sure that they understand that you know where you're going, what your purpose is. Demonstrate the importance of the topic. If we're going to talk about technology in the classroom, well, demonstrate why and how that actually uh, influences the student. So why is technology important in the student's life? And sometimes we just talk about these topics about technology, we talk about identity, we talk about social challenges, but they are like if we were analyzing the things that happen outside, in the outside world. We must bring those things within the life of the student. And that's gonna make them want to say something about that topic. If we don't make that connection, they're always just gonna listen, take notes, do the exam, and keep moving, okay? Demonstrate the importance of the topic in their lives. Break up the practice into stages, meaning that scaffolding is so important. Oh yeah, well, they are in the AP class. You know, they should know better. I don't have to scaffold this. Those classes, the advanced classes, is where you have to do it more, because that's connecting one thing with the other. That's gonna lead to that knowledge that you are looking for without the students getting confused. And always provide strong evidence of what you're saying. Do not talk about the importance of some cultural aspect without providing strong evidence. Meaning, again, let's not talk about things that happen outside, in the outside world, without connecting. And how is that influencing me? How is that influencing the people in that particular culture? Muy bien. How can the teacher promote participation? Raise real problems in class. And I know that some of us love to create fantastic stories, but that has a time, a moment, and a deadline in the world language classroom. The more we keep going in the language, the more we need to get into the real situations in life, because that's what's going to be a factor to motivate the students to stay connected with what's going on in your class. Refine students' responses. Do not correct them. Refine their answers. So that way they can see another point of view, your point of view, or a different point of view that you read on a book, but that they have never considered. Propose response options. Let's give them options. When we give them options, it's easier for the student to participate because they don't have to, produce right away. Recapitulate. We talk about bringing the things from before, previous knowledge, and come to conclusions. So it's always important to close, making sure that when we're coming to conclusions, we're taking into account their feedback. These are all things that we can do in our classes to promote participation. Promoting participation is not just a matter of bringing prizes. It's not just a matter of giving an extra credit. It's not just a matter of bringing easy content. Promoting participation is a science that we must try to do and take into account every day in the classroom. All right, and the last one that I have here, connect the course material with other classes. That is so key for many students. Sometimes we have students who are struggling in our class, but they shine in history class, they shine in math class, they shine in biology class. So what's going on? Well, we need to make sure that we connect the course material with other classes, meaning we need to take into account their whole reality. Muy bien, chicos. Okay. All right. So when we talk about the students' interests and participation, so how the student interests have an influence on their participation. Sometimes we see school life versus real life, but in the language classroom, there's something really important that we always say. In the language classroom, the curriculum is the language itself, okay? So the curriculum is not the curriculum. That's the case of the world language classroom, where the language is the actual curriculum. When we are using the language, we are complying with the curriculum. Of course, you know, the curriculum says that you have to do it in this order, but we're not going to talk about those things today. But as long as you're using the language, you're going to be complying with the curriculum some way. So it's important that we give a very important piece to the real life, to students' interests, whenever we have discussions in class, because life is the curriculum. Each life is unique and interesting. So look at all the opportunities that we have in the classroom to make sure that they will feel engaged and they will feel like they want to participate. Okay, we participate when we feel part of. If you don't feel part of a group, you don't say anything. And that happened with me when I came to the United States. Obviously, I have the cultural shock. And when I will go to the teacher's room, I couldn't understand what they were talking about. It was so different for me. I just sat there quietly because I just didn't felt that I was part of that group at that moment. Of course, this happened because I was recently arrived to the country. My English wasn't good to communicate. Uh, there are so many different reasons why someone doesn't feel part of. That's why creating that community is so important first. The more community you create in your classes, the more participation you're going to have in your classes. Just that's it. If you don't create community in your classes, only a few students will participate here and there, and pretty much always the same ones, because there's going to be a big chunk of students who doesn't feel that they belong there. We participate when we have self-esteem, and we cannot wait for the students to gain that self-esteem outside of the classroom. We need to help them gaining that self-esteem within the classroom. We participate when we are not afraid, when we know that we're not going to be constantly corrected because we mispronounced a word. And if that happened to me as an adult when I came to the States, that I was afraid to say some things because I could mispronounce the word, can you imagine what this does to a student? And I think that the story is that I was at a party with teachers, and there were some American teachers in Colombia, in Bogota, and I wanted the fork, el tenedor. And I asked one of the American ladies, can I please have the fork? And looks like I pronounced it in a way that she was like, what? I said, can I have the fork? And she just started laughing. And then I realized that I said something totally different. And that really, it was hard for me to get out of that. You know, I'm always going to be making a mistake here. I'm always afraid of that. And we participate when we feel good. Okay, so before considering participation in the class, let's think about this, because these are all those factors that influence if the student is participating or not. There are some strong students who will participate no matter what, no matter if they like your class, no matter if they feel safe, no matter if they understand everything, they will always participate. But that's not the case of all of the students that we know. Okay, some thoughts here. Do we grade participation? I think that was one of the questions. Okay, no, that wasn't one of the questions. Do we make them accountable for participating in the class? am I using the participation grade as a behavioral grade? Am I grading their behavior, or am I grading their, evidence of acquisition of the language? Are there other avenues to participate? So other avenues to participate for the student is when the students suggest outside of the classroom or during the classroom different activities. And sometimes we get a little, when the student raises their hand, oh, could we do this, senor? Uh, but I planned this. Okay, so you don't like what I'm doing or what? That just shows engagement to me. Supporting struggling students. If you have students who can support other students who are not doing that well in the class, that's another way to participate, even if they are shy. Or assigning roles in the classroom, okay? With the roles assignment, we just need to be really organized. And I have to recognize that I'm not that organized to assign 20, 25 different roles. I tried to do that once, but it was so hard to keep track of the roles, okay? Okay, the one who's going to be giving away the clipboards, the one who's going to be collecting the papers if they have to give me a paper, the one who's going to make sure that everyone has a pen. I mean, it just became the roles class. But if we can think about 4 or 5 specific roles in our classes and give those roles to students who usually are very quiet in the class, but they're willing to help, maybe we can help them too. And then we rotate those throughout the school year or the semester. Okay, let's talk about participation rubrics. Okay, let me look at the time. Okay, almost done. Participation rubrics. So, about participation rubrics, there is no ideal participation rubric. And this is not coming from research. This is coming from 32 years of experience. I have tried so many different rubrics. I have had rubrics with 3 pages detailing everything that I wanted to see and that supposedly the student was going to get feedback on. Or I have tried rubrics that are very simple, and sometimes I feel like they don't say much. So there's no ideal rubric. To the point, the rubrics have to be tailored to your classes. So when we try to find a rubric for a specific, let's say projects or video project rubric, and we Google it and we go to Teachers Pay Teachers and we find one, and that's the rubric that we're going to use for Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's when rubrics start failing, because we cannot do that. We need to tailor them to the needs and the reality of each one of our classes. Make sure that the rubric promotes participation, in the sense that if rubric is giving some feedback, right? But what do we do after that feedback? The student gets the feedback, but then what? Are they able to make sure that they apply that feedback during the following class, to show evidence that they really understood what the rubric was trying to tell them? Or we just comply with the rubric because we needed a grade, because each one of those boxes means a specific amount of points. The rubric needs to give concrete feedback to the student, okay? In the sense that sometimes we have the student went well beyond the expectation. That's the maximum points. Then we say, excellent job, but excellent is less than going beyond. And then next to excellent, good job. Next to good job, good. Next to good, fairly well. So in real life, do we always have to go beyond expectations in order to be given full credit in life? Do we always go beyond expectations as teachers so we can get our complete check at the end of 2 weeks? And I'm not promoting here that we should be mediocre. No. But we need to give concrete feedback to the students. Hey, this is what I was looking for. You did, you know, what is helping you acquiring the language. I can tell, you know, because you comply with this, and you did this, and you said that. But let's stop putting the students in these cases. Excellent, very good, because that goes to their psyches, and that doesn't help with participation. The rubric has to be a tool to better the classroom environment, not to make divisions in the classroom. And when we give the student the rubric with the results immediately and without physical borders, we create borders within the classroom. This is the group that did okay. That's the group that didn't do well. And that's the group that did really well. But guess what? We're here on the same boat. Self-evaluation is important, but sometimes we use self-evaluation in situations where the students really do not know how to use that tool. Before using self-evaluation, we need to really have discussions with the students on what really means to self-evaluate ourselves, and not necessarily talking about the contents of the class. We can talk about issues in real life, but the concept of self-evaluation sometimes for some students is just an opportunity to give themselves a good grade. And then what happens? Oh, give them a self-evaluation. They gave themselves a pretty good grade, but I don't agree. What do? I don't want to hurt this kid. Be careful with those self-evaluations because we need to work with the students before that. Okay, there are some criteria. If we're talking about rubrics, there are some criteria that could be helpful in the world language classroom. For example, the student is interested in the discussion in class. There are different ways to show that, as we spoke at the beginning of the presentation. Participates frequently in the discussion. And remember, it can be in many ways, not just always verbally. Arguments are relevant and well-founded, meaning they're connected to what we're saying. Ask the right questions to the topic. Shows respect for teachers and classmates. Studied and prepared for the class, meaning we talk about what we can do before class. Provides additional information and material, and it can be information regarding their own experience with a specific topic. Is attentive and open to opinions and arguments of their classmates. Shows initiative and creativity during class. Answer the questions of his teachers and his classmates. These are just a list of criteria that are commonly used in participation rubrics. That doesn't mean that you have to use all of them. Maybe you can choose 5 of them. If you're interested in these criteria, I can send them to you. Just shoot me an email. I'll share my email at the end of the presentation, and I can share that list with you and you choose. But there's something called the CI criteria. And Ben Slavic's classroom rules are kind of like a foundation for those CI participation rules in the world language classroom. The first one, listen with the intent to understand. Okay, the student is there listening, trying to understand everything that is going on in the class. Doesn't say much, but it's trying to understand everything that you're trying to say. And it brings to my mind my friend Grayson. Grayson is very quiet, but Grayson is always absorbing everything that I'm saying, everything. You can tell because they laugh at your jokes, because they pay attention to key moments. So Ben says, as a classroom rule, not necessarily as a participation rule, listen with the intent to understand. I put this in my rubrics. One person speaks and the other listens, meaning to be so kind to make sure that we listen to the others when they are participating. And that's so easy to observe. Support the flow of the language. Then we have here the student, it's talking about the topic that we are discussing in the class, makes comments that are important. All of those things that I show in those 10 points criteria are involved here. The thing is that right now we're only talking about 5 points. If the teacher is not clear, then tell him or her with kindness. I think that's so important when the students feel comfortable to let you know that, Senor, I really didn't understand the directions, the homework directions. And you go back and you're like, yeah, instead of like, oh, I'm sorry, homework is homework, you have to do it. That to me is also a student who's engaged, a student who is interested in things running well in the class. And do your 50%. So here I have these Ben Slavik's classroom rules that can be translated in a participation rubric if you have to give a participation grade to your students. I'm not against participation grades because it's a world language classroom, and when we create community, we are responsible for making sure that every member of that community feels engaged, and every member of that community is giving something. And that giving something is taking part of, is joining, is making sure that they can be called participants of the classroom. There's a rule that he says nothing on desks unless told otherwise. I do not use desks, but if you use desks, I just included this one because it's important that the students do not have much on their desks because that's a distractor, a big distractor. Okay. So right now it's 6 p.m. I thank you so much for staying here connected with me. Here's my information. Some of you know a little bit about me, but if you need to connect with me, feel free to shoot me an email at diego@señorojeda.com. And let's follow each other on Twitter, Instagram, and in my blog, you find a lot of resources for different aspects of the class. Okay, so I want to thank you very, very much for being here today. I'm going to stop the recording and let's see. All right.